Would you like to learn what retail information modeling is and how BIM will evolve in the future? Today's guest for the BIM Talk is Jonathan Ingram, and he's a credible person to answer all of these questions and even more. He'll be speaking about the past, present, and the future, which is one of his books. He's an author, he's an academic career, he has a PhD, and has a professional career as well. He sold companies which were later acquired by Autodesk. He had awards, which we will be discussing in this video as well, more about him. So stay tuned and keep watching until the end. Hi Ingram, welcome to our BIM Talk series. We are excited to see and have a great talk with you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much for asking me, and I'm sure we'll have an interesting talk.
Yeah, we will have a great talk with Ingram. We will talk a little bit about BIM, a little bit about the past, present, and future. We will talk about his book as well. He's an author at the same time. And we'll talk about retail information modeling. So there's an interesting topic if you don't know. We will hear it from an expert. And there will be a lot of advice and tips. So stay until the end. There will be a very sincere and fruitful talk. So before we start a little bit going into details on those topics, I wanted to introduce you to Ingram a bit. He won some awards. We will talk about that, and we will talk about his career. So can you start explaining us a bit about your career? How did you start this path? How did you arrive to your current level?
I am a civil engineer, and I was brought up in Australia. So a very long time ago, I was working on the roads and pipe networks in Australia. As a Shire engineer, so a very junior engineer. I had used computers a little bit in my time during our studying, and I decided that I really didn't want to do all these calculations by slide rule and by log tables, and that I really didn't particularly like drawing, so I started working with computers. I went to work as a scientist for the Australian government. And there I got to use all the most fabulous toys that were at that moment the fastest computer in the world. So these were toys that were really whizzo. And at that time, we're still using punch cards. There's no color screens. This is a long time ago, prehistory almost. I discovered about computer-aided design while I was there, although it was very formative. I learned about BDS and GDS from John Giro, who's a lecturer at Sydney University. And I made what is, I think, the first architectural movie ever. From there, I went to England, came to England, where I am now. So I'm based in Winchester in England. And I went to work for an architectural practice, and we started producing drawings using basically a variant of BDS, which is 2.5D. So you have plans and elevations. That's it. At that time, this is 1984 now, 85. At that time, the computers were just arriving on desktop. Very expensive. £10,000 in those days, yeah? So it's, 20,000 now, I guess, for a desktop computer. And this is black and white, 1 megabyte, just very slow, 1/10,000th, I think, the speed of what we have now, of my iPhone 12, 1/10,000th of the speed. So I had to count the floating point calculations, but with that, I sat in an attic alone for several years and wrote what is now recognized as the first BIM system called Sonata. That did everything you know that's in BIM today, everything. By modern standards, by the BIM handbook standards, this was architecture. So that's how I got to there. The story of what happened then is a different question, but it was a very long and evolved story and led to Revit and to ArchiCAD in different ways.
Yeah, we have the full version of the video, and there is a more detailed version of the presentation that Ingram is talking and his history in the past. We have the video in the link below in the description or in the about, depending on the platform you're watching. However, let's discuss a little bit about on the BIM side. So the present BIM, you published a book. What was the purpose of publishing this book? And you also won an award. Can you tell a little bit about that?
I won the award in 2016 for my work over 20 years, where I did these first BIM systems, Sonata and Revit, Sonata and Reflex. Reflex I sold to Parametric Technology Corporation in the United States. I became Chief Technology Officer there. At that stage, I had several thousand users around the world, and we're using it for all sorts of different disciplines. The founders of Revit worked there as employees, and they were given rights to use the sources, that full license to use the sources and to develop the sources, which they did. And out of that came Revit, which is very similar to Reflex. Because of that work, I was awarded the 2016 Royal Academy Engineers Medal, Gold Medal, Prince Philip Gold Medal, for my contribution to BIM.
Okay, can you explain a bit about the award, what other people wanted, or what was the requirements for applying for that award? A little bit, because not everyone might be aware of that award. So can you describe a little bit about that?
The award is awarded once every 2 years globally, and it's not awarded every year. Some of the people who have run, Frank Whittle won the medal. Frank Whittle invented the jet engine. The man that invented finite element meshes is in there. And it's a very notable collection of people, and I'm very honored to be in that list. I was truly shocked when I discovered I'd won. And the book has evolved because the authorship of Revit was denied, or the lack of input of my systems was denied. I felt the need to write the book. And the book explains the history. It goes into a lot of detail about how it got to where it got to, the inputs, and all of the different types of users. So we're using it for 5-dimensional BIM at that in the 90s. We were using it in engineering. We're using it for tunnels. We're using it in contours. We're using it for architecture, retail. So there's quite and services, especially services. So there's quite a broad range of engineering and disciplines that was used.
I mean, we went through your book, so it's an interesting one, and I will be showing you briefly here on the camera. I don't know how visible it is, but yeah. I mean, we will have the description in the link as well for this book. So if you want to just take a physical copy of it or ebook version, just go ahead and do it. And we have the link in the below. I think it's an interesting book because you cover a lot of interesting bits of the for the past of BIM and how it evolved. You talk a bit about present. There are also quite interesting future bits. Yeah, I mean, it has interesting diagrams inside. We will come in a second about retail information modeling, and in the book, Jonathan Ingram explains a little bit more about and goes deeper. So in this conversation, you will hear about like basics, principles, and overall understanding of RIM, retail information modeling. However, if you go inside the book, you will understand a bit more, and because he dives deeper and has a little bit more information about that subject. Maybe we can explain about, like what you're doing current practice, and then we can move forward with some of the interesting topics that we have promised in the beginning.
Okay,
of this talk.
I've spent the last 4 years doing retail information modeling, which is applying exactly the same principles as BIM to retail. Retail is actually remarkably similar in some ways to the construction industry, and it has different stakeholders who are interested in what appears. So we created a single source of truth within the model. We have different ways of looking at that. We have different types of information that can be displayed to different people. We have parametrics. I haven't felt the need for clash detection yet, but there are many, many other things which take it beyond. I guess where it becomes interesting for current BIM users is, where is BIM going? And here we've applied a lot of artificial intelligence, voice commands, augmented reality, virtual reality, and really it's a very dynamic system, and the response has been unbelievable.
The question would be here, it took 3 decades and maybe even more to make a shift towards BIM since it was introduced, maybe like, as I said, more than 3 decades. However, the real question is, what is the effort it will take to people to adopt to RIM as well, retail information modeling? Do you think it will be a very difficult shift, or do you think that's like it will be part of the BIM in the future, or people will be like smoothly moving to that side after they adopted BIM fully? So what is your thinking on that?
The real problem with selling BIM in the early days, that everyone was sole users, and that was a great problem. It involves changing work practice, and the construction industry wasn't really sure. It's taken 30 years to really take off. I would say it took 45 minutes inside each presentation we give inside the retail industry. 45 minutes, they are sold and they put their money, and it's such a different reaction. I think they are at a loss though, and they don't even have CAD. That is the problem. I mean, they have CAD drawings for their buildings, but how it all links together is a nightmare in their current systems, and we've solved that.
I think one is focusing on the culture, because the industry had a certain culture, certain workflow with the CAD. Before that they were drafting, so when they moved towards the CAD, the workflow was the same. So they weren't still collaborating, they weren't still discussing and so forth. But the retail market, I think it's a little bit different. They are focusing on return on investment, ROI. So as soon as you focus on that advantages of the ROI and how you can benefit it, it's automatically sold. So there is not such a culture and collaboration issues. Is this one of the main reasons that it's being sold?
Return on investment seems to be the sole thing in most industries. We have a very simple, clear way of showing return on investment, and we optimize. We know where everything is in the store. Retailers don't on the big stores. Because of that, and our access to real-time data, we can optimize the way the shelves are laid out, and we engage the customer. We can have ways of engaging the customer in store or shopping at home in these very realistic stores. There is a very clear path to return of investment. But there had to be before too. Nobody invests without that.
And if we can give as an example on the ROI model, kind of a model or a system that you implemented or you have as a concept, what it could be, so people can understand a little bit more about what we are talking.
So we have a single information model. As you do in BIM, you need ways to generate that model. There are different ways. You have existing stores, so we walk around the store scanning, and we can generate a BIM model, not just the store layout, but the actual BIM model, which we store internally, because we have the store model as well as the product models and where the products are laid out. So we generate the whole thing by scanning with a phone now, if it exists, or we take DXF or Revit drawings, import them in, and automatically or semi-automatically construct the BIM model. So constructing is a very important part. We have research. So different people using it in different ways. The research people want to be able to put a person in the store and have them go around in virtual reality and shop and see how they react, what they're looking at, what they pick up. So we do that in the same live store.
Kind of simulation, I believe. It's a kind of simulation, right?
It is, but if you Google Nielsen Smart Store, you'll actually see our software running, and that is live from there. Nielsen are the biggest research company in the world in retail. Then we have display systems. So we have a large display room where 86-inch screens, and you can manipulate data, display data, real data of sales and things. And then you have, we have those going in several US sites. And we have the most important one is the optimizing the store, and to have that beautiful store, realistic store, available to customers online. So if you want to go in and walk and shop the store.
Wow, they just have the real experience through the access of their computer. So it could be web-based.
It's web-based. We don't need the big graphics. We do the graphics in the cloud.
Anyone can access it, I believe, like with an iPad or with just a laptop. They go web-based, they shop, they move around the store and so forth. Okay, so it is like the idea is basically making a benefit from the two sides. So one side is benefiting the owner of the store. He can manage the store, he can access the data. If he wants some changes, he can see in advance what is working, what's not. And the second way is that the access of the customers. So when they visit the store, you see how they're acting, how they're behaving, when you collect the cookies, and then you can input that analysis in the research and building more efficient models.
The last thing we have is we actually, on your smartphone or on a phone, we have an avatar appear and take you around the store. The phones these days, we can work out where we are from the graphics, from what we can see, and we know where everything is in the store because we have a mirror copy of the database. So you say to your phone, where is the special K? And the man appears and he takes you to, or the dots on the line if you prefer.
Wow. And what kind of stores could be that most beneficial to? What kind of stores you are selling mostly?
Well, we're talking to the biggest US retail stores. Well, I've only touched on some of the stuff. It's a very pretty picture. The very comprehensive model and the way we work is very interesting. So, we're we're well poised. I guess where it really becomes interesting for BIM users, if you're in the BIM business, is that technology applied back into making a new BIM system. So voice activated, large touchscreens, simplifying the interface, overcoming the problems that BIM has come across so far. There is a monopoly now, no names, and there's consequential overcharging apparently, and that happens. It's too complex to use. It's just been grown. It needs to be cloud-based. It needs to be simplified. You need chatbots, gesture. It needs to have a bit of modern technology chucked at it. BIM hasn't changed hugely since the 90s, early 90s, when I did the second system, and even then it didn't change that much. It is ripe for change, and I do know of a team that's building a new system which will compete with Revit directly and will be very cheap and will solve a lot of the problems. So, we watch that space carefully.
How do you think Revit, ArchiCAD, maybe like technical software will evolve in the future, or where are they going? I mean, are we thinking about like AI systems will override them, or are they going to interpret AI systems into their software so it will be easier and it will be like a more artificial intelligence going into their software? What do you think on that subject?
I mean, I use AI every day and work with it. I think AI is not quite ready to say, design me an office building the way Richard Rogers would do it. But I don't think it's that far away. I think it's going to take a lot of buildings to go through and models to come out before we can get there. No, in the shorter term, the AI will be limited to the smaller parts of the system, to objects themselves. And one of the tricks is to make it so that you don't have to take the model, change it to get it into another system. You want to be able to use the model in situ, and you want to be able to use objects within that model in an intelligent way and simplified. But you also need AI in the interface so they get used to the way you use the interface. We've been playing with some of that. AI is getting there, but it's not the answer to all the questions yet. Will there be a point in the future saying, build me a Richard Rogers airport with this floor base that looks like Richard Rogers stuff? I don't know. Norman Foster, or cross between the two? I think we're getting there, but that is some time away to do something that sophisticated.
It always needs a human input. I mean, I will give you an example right now. Obviously, it's not directly BIM related stuff, but if you look at the Iron Man, he builds a suite himself, but there's an AI system all the time analyzing making the checks and making all the bits and small corrections. So he's just doing things faster and efficiently. Obviously, he still has to make the engineering and the input, like genius sits behind it. But the idea is like the AI system is just automates. So he doesn't need anyone. So he just puts his engineering and his mind into the process, and AI helps him to get the product right away. So I think we need to have BIM in the near future in a similar way. So there are certain things that are repetitive and can be like easily simulated, analyzed, and give us analysis and the results. So as an engineer or as a designer or as like a analytical thinkers, whatever like profession, architects, engineers, and all around them is even project managers. So they can have a computed quick simulations, computed like repetitive works. He can just direct the AI by voice commands and doing some works right away, and he will be able to put the experience and intelligence, human intelligence, into that by developing and bringing the right results. In the beginning, when we switched towards the BIM, like I would say about 50 years ago, 10 years ago, it was more about, like people were thinking, okay, it's a button. You just click on the button and it gives a model. You just do something, it changes it. Actually, they don't understand it's a collaborative approach. Regardless of your expertise with BIM, whether you're a beginner, advanced, or a senior level, there's always something to learn and something to discuss. Therefore, we are doing for the first time a live event. It's a live webinar about BIM management. If you click on the link below, you will be able to sign it up and make a notification on your calendar. It's 16th of December, and we will discuss about change management, big BIM, small BIM, and interoperability with BIM. Therefore, I will highly appreciate your support because I want to share and engage with all of you. Just click on the link below and make a notification on your calendar so we can meet each other on the 16th of December. There are two things I think industry is missing when they think about the BIM. Is one is how the technology is evolving. It's like about the AI and the like different system that allows your collaboration and use of the system like more efficiently. And the second thing is actual collaboration, because people are missing that. We need to change the mindset and the structure of the industry, because most of the industries that are improving a lot, like manufacturing industry, they are collaborating. So they're collaborating a lot, constant collaboration, constant improvement, constant development, and that's how they're developing. So are you thinking it's like in the retail RIM, like retail information modeling, so in the retail market, is it about collaboration, or it's not really issue for the retail market, the collaboration?
Collaboration is a big part of the problem in retail information modeling. Absolutely. The different processes involve very different groups of people. If there's a single model, they have to collaborate, and it's exactly the same process. But talking about intelligence in the model itself, we're talking about building in artificial intelligence into quite a number of, no longer just having parametric objects, but objects which have an artificial intelligence side. And it's not limited to just viewing one for one purpose. An object becomes bigger horizontally in that each of the different disciplines or even programs that use it will have their own intelligence built into each single object. And that is, I think, largely where it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But that's what I'm attempting to do with one or two parts.
Obviously, we talked about a little bit about like retail information modeling. Regarding the BIM, so do you think they are going to merge in the future, or they will be still two separate subjects or two separate uses, or in some cases we will merge it, in some cases we will be separate uses? What do you think on that?
I think that they will merge, but not in the way you expect. I don't think Revit is flexible enough to, it's 3 million lines of C++, and not everyone, it's difficult to get your head around. It was difficult enough originally. It's going to take a new system, and it will merge, bring together everything in a very intimate way. One of the problems with Revit is that when you export IFCs, industry foundation classes, they're actually quite dumb. There's no linking, there's no information, no parametrics. There's a 3D model, but it's not sufficient in order to do anything useful. And if you want something useful to go into your HVAC or into your heating model, then you need more information than is available.
I agree on one side of what you say with the IFC. What it does is like when you export IFC model from Revit, it simplifies the model. So there are a lot of data that is removed from the model, and we use it generally just to verify the information or just to collaborate with the other stakeholders, because there is a security issue, there's confidential issue still, like because we still use traditional workflows, so people doesn't want to share the native models, even between, like if there are two Revit users, sometimes they just share the IFC just because they don't want to come up with a conflict because of the traditional workflows. And it really reduces it. We again boil down to the collaboration thing, but IFCs, yeah, I agree with you, not there exactly taking the exact software data and doing it in the most efficient way, but still, like many people still don't use IFC workflow. They either prefer native software. If they are Revit users, they want to stick with the other Revit users and they want to collaborate like that. But recently, in a couple of years, industry, like market, other software vendors really started to market themselves, really started to put some effort, and they start to penetrate the market more efficiently, providing better tools. We are seeing a lot of startup companies that are providing new tools, new software products into the market. So I think that is also very important for the market in order to get the, like a lot of useful tools and to bring the market into the next level.
But one of the problems they're having is that people are having to copy a whole model out, change it, add to it to get it to work in another system. That does not work, and that's expensive. And to copy, it's not just an IFC model, they need more information. The lowest common denominator of a 3D model is not sufficient if you want to do a structural program. You have to be able to pull out much more information, and the BIM model has that, but the IFC model is 10% of what's in there. You need the connectivity. For instance, in the BIM model, you know that the walls connect. You know that because that's how it tidies them up. I know. You know that the window's inserted into the wall. You know that that beam is joined to that like that. And you know the type of connection. You know the detail of the connection. You know the number of bolts. When you get it out, you've got a bit of graphics that represents it, but you don't know the type of connection, whether it's pinned or maybe you can deduce it by looking at it, but it's certainly no longer inherent in the model. I mean, the pipe connections, if you've got ductwork, are sort of obvious and sort of not, but within the BIM model, you can actually do the flow calculations. You can size it automatically and stay within the regulation. No way can you do that in the IFC model. So if you want to do a duct network analysis, you're adding information once you get it out of the BIM model. That's wrong. That shouldn't be like that. That is anathema to BIM. That means you've got to copy the data. I mean, it's a common source of data, sure, but you're copying the data each time you want to put it into a different system. That can't go on. And one of the big pushbacks from users, well, one of the many pushbacks from users is doing that. They don't want to copy the data, add to it to get it to work in another system. They just want it just to work. What I'm suggesting is that by making the connections better and tighter, there are ways to do that which are not obvious. Then you can have the two systems, or all those systems working. And I know that's what this other team is working on.
I think we have a very good conversation here. I think what we are just simply trying to say is when we have a very good, very detailed BIM model, let's say a Revit model, and we use all the capabilities of the software to full extent, when we take that model to the IFC, we generally use spaces, or we generally use simplified version of that. So like Ingram said, we're not focusing on the details of how the connections were made. We're just extracting the volumes and the spaces. Maybe we can still do a flow analysis, but it will not contain all the junctions and the connections, which is the critical part of the flow analysis, like HVAC flow, because the connections are generally making the sound like small sounds, which we are eliminating them because we are simplifying that model just using the spaces and the type of connection, like because the software is working at a certain extent and the IFC cannot penetrate that kind of information into it. Obviously, for clash detection and so forth, it's another thing because it's BCF. We can use BCF formats, and it's somewhat it's still efficient to take some data to, like from one software to another software and highlight certain beds. I don't think still it's there. It's very like the best workflow ever, like smoothest. But I think it allows at this level some kind of interoperability. So there's no monopoly system, because otherwise it was like a real monopoly system in the industry. And now at least with the IFC other vendors started to like rise a bit and saying, hey, we are here as well. We can collaborate with IFC. So they are trying to like kind of move the monopoly system into distributed to more smaller vendors. And I think this is very important, because if this is really done, I think the market will really compete and we will get better products and better results for us as well, and faster development, because the industry will start marketing them. So what do you think on that subject?
I agree with you. I mean, you do need some sort of basic transfer, but is it an answer to the problem? No, it solves, it's a Band-Aid. It's when you're bleeding to death, the Band-Aid's not going to help you. And I think it's pretty much that. I think it needs a tighter integration the way you're talking about, and then with that, you will have this ability to communicate and collaborate.
Do you think that the IFC will evolve in the future? Or will evolve to something else, or will it remain the same thing? Revit will remain where it is, and there are other softwares like AI and more proper collaboration and better integration will appear. So the industry will be divided into two sides. Basically, one is focusing on the AI and collaboration through the cloud with better integration, direct coding or something like that. And the other part is like native software and IFC use, like the current collaboration, basically.
I don't think IFC will change much more unless Autodesk allow it. Autodesk might do a lot better by allowing us direct access into their database and the parametrics and the connections. But then they give away the baby with the bathwater if you do that. They have to guard their intellectual property. I know exactly what their intellectual property is because I wrote the original ones in the 80s and 90s, and they acquired those indirectly. So let's have a go. I think there's a huge amount of experience gone into Autodesk, huge amount into AutoCAD, into Revit in particular, and we can learn from that. But we've also learned the problems, and we hear very clearly a very loud noise of the users screaming about the problems in Revit, about the complexity, about the inability to grow, the size of the databases, all of this. There's a whole range of issues which people are complaining about. We can address those and learn the lessons they've learned. I think there's a huge amount of work to get there, but I can see ways it can be done.
Please like our videos and share it with your peers. If you like more BIM talks, comment below. And if you have any questions to Jonathan Ingram, just comment below. We'll be happy to answer those questions, and we will be happy to communicate with you more BIM talks. So if you have any subjects or some ideas, please comment below. We really want to hear from you. The last thing we will ask for the Ingram, and I think you should really listen to this, he will just give his kind of idea how the future will be. So in his book, again, he mentioned about it in detail, but we will just have a couple of last sentences for him, what he thinks about the ideal future in maybe let's say 2030 and 2050, two dates, I would say.
I left my crystal ball in the other room, but let me see if I can have a think about it. BIM in the future, I think it will evolve and it will change. It will be simplified. It's a bit like it should be like driving a car. Anyone can drive a car. Anyone can drive a washing machine. You shouldn't have to refer to the manual. Everything should be obvious and easy. It should be like that. So I think the simplicity should be coming. I think intelligence, the ability to work with other systems will grow. So grasshoppers and the rhinos and the structural programs and the services programs will be integrated into BIM. And I'm not saying Revit in particular or anything. I'm saying this is how BIM systems will be in the future. I think the realism is inside the construction program, inside the program when you're using, is just going to get insanely real. There are movies out there. They're doing movies for the big picture houses where you almost cannot tell. In real time, you cannot tell whether it's real or not. And I'm sure that realism and that comfort of realism is coming. It's a limited use in itself. I think artificial intelligence is finding its way into everything, and BIM objects, when it's allowed into BIM objects and into the parametrics, then you will find a whole new host of tools appearing within to help you build the model. It's not just building the model, it's helping you build the model and optimizing layouts and determining adjacencies and minimizing costs. And perhaps most importantly is that the new BIM systems will regulate greenhouse gas. Climate change will become an integral part of systems in the future, determining, because the construction industry does 40% of the greenhouse gases. Constructing the buildings and in running them, we have a huge responsibility to fix that very quickly. And I think BIM has that capability. So there are some changes. There's some changes coming. It's an exciting and interesting future, and we are looking to build teams to capture those ideas and take it on from where it seems to have stalled.
I think you made an excellent answer, and we really have to think about it, improve how to use BIM for better advantage. You need to think about, for the industry, for your own office, for your own practice, how to get most out of it, how we can make a real impact, not only on just focus narrowing things on a particular software, but looking at a bigger picture and how we can really get the most benefit out of it. I think that is a real question we need to all the time ask ourselves before we even start moving into BIM or doing more things with the BIM. How we can do better things in the future, how we can do better things tomorrow, even now. So we need to do look at the bigger picture. He just made an excellent answer, and I would like to thank you, Ingram. I think it was great to host you here. So as a guest, it was really, I think our industry will have a lot of benefits from your talk.
Thank you very much, and I enjoyed the talk, and I enjoyed talking with you, and I hope the answers were interesting.
If you didn't see other BIM Talk videos, you can watch Gavin Crump here or Marzia Bolpagni. We have amazing discussion with the Gavin Crump, two BIM influencers discussing interesting tips and tricks. If you like this video and more videos like this, subscribe to our channel because there will be many more. And don't forget to turn the notification bell on.